What do we do when our values and our neurodivergent needs clash, especially during the holidays? Hi, I'm Brett from Neurodivergent Insights, and this week Dr. Megan Anna Neff and I are talking about that clash of needs and values that Dr. Neff wrote about in their newsletter this week from Neurodivergent Insights. We're going to expand upon that further in conversation today. Dr. Megan Anna Neff, they is an autistic ADHD clinical psychologist who blends research, clinical insights, and lived experience to make sense of adult neurodivergence. She creates clear, compassionate, neurodivergent affirming education for autistic, ADHD, and ADHD adults, and for the clinicians who support them. They're also the author of Self-Care for Autistic People and the Autistic Burnout Workbook, as well as the creator of Neurodivergent Insights. Our goal for each video on our YouTube channel is to offer practical tools, grounded explanations, and honest conversations about sensory health, burnout, masking, identity, and everyday neurodivergent life living with ADHD and autism. The article that we're talking about this week was actually one of the first Dr. Neff wrote a few years back, shortly after getting diagnosed.
It was Thanksgiving Day, actually, when I wrote the first version of this article. And I was just dreading the thought of going to my parents' house and being with my family. I love my family. I have a good relationship with my family. However, there were also 6 grandchildren and they were young at the time. And Thanksgiving has a lot of smells and it has a lot of, we were just talking about this at our team meeting, actually. There's a lot of clicky sounds because people want to use fancy silverware and and that makes more clicks. And it's just always have had this experience of dreading Thanksgiving or dreading family events. And even low grade, what I now know is sensory shutdowns, low grade dissociating. For so long, I had this narrative of like, why can't I be here? Why do I dread this? I love my family. I value time with them. So what's wrong with me? So the first Thanksgiving approaching this as an autistic person was a pretty powerful aha moment of, oh, of course this hurts because I value my family, because I value connection. And when I go to these events, I don't feel connected. I don't feel connected to myself, to my body. And therefore, how could I possibly feel connected to others? Put on top of that, all of the cultural pressure of like, this is a time of connection. This is a time to be merry. That absolutely just showed up as a sort of value, and then sensory or access needs clash that once I had language for it, it really helped me to have a lot more compassion and understanding for why the holidays are so hard for me.
How did you then go from trying to sort out naming that and then what you have defined as the value process of trying to assess, okay, checking in with myself, how am I defining what those values are, and my sensory needs? How did that push-pull of that come about for you?
I do a lot of meta thinking, which I think a lot of autistic people do. So I think, I was introduced to values work in my training to become a psychologist. It's a core part of a lot of psychological theories. One that I did a lot of training in is called ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy. And there's a lot of values work baked into that because the idea is we tend to do better when our life is aligned to our values, and we tend to suffer more and struggle more when there's a disconnect between something that's highly valued, but something that we're struggling to move toward. So values work was something that I already was familiar with, so that was helpful. And then what was new for me in that first Thanksgiving was all of a sudden I had all this awareness around sensory needs and what was actually happening to my body around sensory shutdowns. And so that's when I started to be able to put those pieces together of there's these values I hold, and then there's these sensory barriers I experience. And so of course that's going to hurt because it makes it hard to move toward what matters to me. It makes it hard for me to move toward my values.
Did you find that upon being on the other side of your autism diagnosis, did your values shift or change with that new perspective on that end?
That's really interesting. That's a great question. I don't know that the core values shifted or changed too much, but I would say that my masked self probably had, I almost don't want to call them values, but they'd be maybe like faux values or performative values. Like I think being really helpful to others was one of the ways I showed up, but a lot of that was around I mean, and I do actually genuinely care about helping others, but the way it was showing up was like a compensation for my social discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
I've perhaps been able to become more honest about my values. Like whenever I've done a value sort, autonomy is my number one value.
Yeah.
And I have more compassion for why that is when I think about autism and the need for space, like that idea of being in our own space and time and world. The way I experience my values has shifted, and my ability to be compassionate and understanding of the values that are really important to me.
Yeah. When you sent me the link to go through to do the exercise to look at my values, there's a 3-step process that you start really wide and then you start to zoom in to get to the 5 core values. And every single time, knee-jerk reaction, autonomy was the first one I always brought over. Every single time. And I don't think I would have thought about grabbing autonomy so quickly if I was on the pre-diagnosis side where I am now versus where I was then. It was just like every time autonomy. That was the first thing.
Mm-hmm. We did this in the Nook, which is our community for neurodivergent adults. It was part of, I think it's one of the courses we ran. I think it was the interest-based nervous system. And we invited people to do the value sort. And then Stephanie, our Nook keeper who loves, statistics and spreadsheets, made a spreadsheet of the top values that showed up. And I think that would actually be a really interesting study to look at a value sort and then look at autistic people, ADHD people, and ADHDers because I think there are some common themes.
Yeah.
I'm curious for us to compare ours in a minute.
Yeah.
Can I show real quick just for people who are new to values? Okay. So there are like, therapists will sometimes have these, it's like a value card deck. So the practice, and I love this because it's like tactile. So I used to, when I had a clinical practice and was in person, would do this with folks. And the idea is you take the cards, and this can be hard for autistic people, but your first run through, you're supposed to go really quickly to try and go on instinct, to not give us the chance to overthink it.
That was hard for me. That was really hard.
It is hard. Well, because also it's not very, and this can be a hard exercise for autistic people. I like to let folks know that because there's often not enough context. Mm-hmm. It could be like, well, I value family in this way or in this context, or I value meaningful work here. So it can be hard for our brains. But yeah, that very first one is like just a really instinctual, is it in the keep or the drop pile? And then we narrow it down to like 15, 10, 5. Some people have you narrow it down to your number 1.
Yeah.
That to me is very hard.
That's very hard.
Yeah. I am curious, what was your experience of coming to the 5?
It was a classic ADHD experience of, it starts with a huge bucket of terms. I think it was something like 15 or 20 terms. My instinct was, well, I'm a little bit this, but I'm a little bit that. And so I kept looking for that. I kind of thought about your Venn diagrams, where I'm always thinking about that sort of middle strand where, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this, I'm going to take a little bit of this, and I'm going to do that. But I didn't have the option to do that. So it sort of forced me, which I'm always like, oh no, which is where
well, it's a loss of autonomy.
Exactly. Which is why I went autonomy first every single time. It was like, autonomy, what's going over there?
Like, you are threatening my autonomy right now.
So I struggled with that, but then pattern recognition kicked in. And then I went, okay, those two are kind of similar. So if I had to give like a less or more than, less than kind of thing, I took the lesser of two evils and I would put that over in my keep, and I would toss. So like there was a couple things.
So like work and meaningful work were both
exactly like meaningful work I would keep. And like, I think I even tossed out something like financial gain, or I forget, there was like a financial one and then there was a money one. And I found the one that felt more meaningful to me in terms of like, that gave me creativity, gave me autonomy, and gave me satisfaction. That's the one I would keep.
Yeah. Well, and there was money, there was wealth, there was stability.
Yeah.
And so like those, for me too, I'm like, okay, I think actually stability is the core driver here.
Yeah.
Because that's why like money would matter to me, would be the security or the stability or the safety. So yeah, there is a bit of like kind of thinking
that was the exact
even
same
of like what's
process.
beneath this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we show, I haven't seen your 5 yet.
No.
I haven't seen my 5.
No.
Should we show them to each other?
Should.
Okay, let's do you first. Okay, happiness, autonomy, creativity, fairness, and stability. Yeah, I love these. The fairness captured a lot.
Yeah. Fairness captured a lot for me. I think when I narrowed things down a lot, it kept going into fairness.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there was a lot. Happiness. Can you say more about that one? That one's interesting to me.
That was another one of those where a lot of things just sort of funneled into happiness. And I thought, I just want to be happy. At the end of the day, I don't want angst. I want to fight my OCD, and I just want to sit quietly and be happy.
Yeah.
However that gets defined, because it can be defined, like I can cast out some of the career things if I'm happy in the thing that I'm doing. I can, because like happiness for me can be not worrying.
Yeah. Yeah. Like mental wellness.
Yeah.
Like often when we talk about mental health, we end up talking about the pathology side, but there's also the flourishing side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost wish there was a card for that. Like, well, I mean, happiness captures it, but like flourishing or something that captures that, like the positive aspect of mental health.
I feel like my happiness is your spirituality.
Yes. Oh, should I show here? I'll show my cards and then we can talk about. Okay. So I have, family on here. And I have children, and I think that you can't be a parent and not have family in your top core values.
Yeah.
And then meaningful work, which I actually think my meaningful work is similar to your fairness. Because part of my meaningful work, like that wrapped a lot of like diversity, justice stuff of like, it's having a positive impact in the world. Autonomy and creativity were there. I kept going back and forth between creativity and playfulness. Because I actually feel like playfulness is a bigger construct. But I was like, but I also think people hear play and it doesn't capture all of it. And then, spirituality, I think, is your happiness. And that was a hard one for me to put on, in the sense that I used to be very religious. And then I went through a process of no longer being religious, and then coming home to my spirit, like to spirituality, and realizing I'm still a very spiritual person, even though that looks different than what it looked like for much of my life. There's been a sort of reclaiming there that for the first few years post-religion was really hard for me to do. But that has become, so that's kind of a newer like reintegration of part of me. And I agree, it's connected to like happiness and wellness and flourishing.
That our journeys on religion are very similar. Same for me, as like getting to that place where I'm just happy with all aspects, including spirituality, is like where I would land for that. So
happiness is a good card because it kind of captures
kind of that big picture.
You probably need a level of stability to be happy, a level of perhaps spirituality. So you can sneak a lot into that card.
And that's I struggled with the same thing in terms of creativity and playfulness. And then I just thought, well, playfulness fits into creativity for me because a lot of my creative aspect is play. So for me, I'm happiest when I'm playing, when I'm being creative. So,
yes, same. And that's play doesn't look, what looks like play to me, most people might look at it and be like, that's not play.
Yes. I think
like, yes, it is.
For both of us. Yeah. People say to me, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm enjoying myself.
I'm playing. Yes. Okay. So Brett, how do your values bump into the holidays, either in positive ways or in hard ways?
Similar to what you wrote in the essay, it's that I think for me, I would rather have small, intimate family moments where it's that more immediate nuclear family where, you're engaging with people on sort of that more deeper connection level, as opposed to that wider connection where, again, the sensory things clash. Like for me, it's the noises of like a huge family gathering is equivalent to a very busy restaurant with bad sound control, because it's like I can hear 15 conversations all happening at once, and I'm picking up on different conversations. Like this happened for me at Thanksgiving. I could hear 5 different conversations going on about 5 different things, but I couldn't hear the person sitting directly next to me trying to talk to me. Mm-hmm. And that was just exhausting. And so after like an hour and a half of that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. I want to go home. Like, let's go.
Exhausting and like FOMO. Like I can hear all these conversations, but I can't plug into any of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's actually FOMO feels like it makes it, that's like a cheapening word. It's that relational disconnect of like, I want to be here. I want to be engaged. I want to contact you. I can see you all are contacting each other. And I can't slow down like, or filter the sensory enough to be able to contact the person sitting right next to me.
Closer to Christmas, my extended family has this big 50 people gathering where there's a huge sort of like Yankee swap and things like that. And it is in a living room with a very high ceiling. So there's just so much noise and there's so many different things with all the young grandkids and everything, cousins, nephews, people of all ages. Everybody's having conversations. All the kids are all doing something. There's a television blasting. It is such overwhelm for me that I hope they don't see this video, but I have to politely decline to go every year because it's just so overwhelming for me.
Well, and to bring it back to like the values and the sensory, that's where I think values can help. If the value is connection or family, but if the impact is I actually leave feeling more disconnected from my family, then that's actually not a consistent move toward values. Mm-hmm. Now, and this is where it gets complicated for me and where I was exploring, like, it's not just about value sensory clashes, but it can be about value clashes. Yeah. Like for me, going to a Thanksgiving event, I just have come to peace with that's not going to be a connecting experience for me, but it is going to create memories for my children that they value, and I value that. And so it's once I was able to go in knowing what what my hope for outcome was, like my hope is not to feel connected. My hope is to help curate a positive memory for my children. Then it's like it lowered the pressure or expectation of, I know why I like put myself through this because of that consistency. Yeah. Whereas when I think we have the pressure of like, I'm supposed to enjoy this event or I'm supposed to feel connected, that's where it can really be deflating, because it's like we get into that what's wrong with me that I can't.
And that's sort of what I took away from your essay. It was a way to sort of manage my expectations, but also lock into a value that I can hold on to. Maybe not all my values, but lock into one value that's like, okay, this is going to work for me, and I'm going to use this value to go through this day, and that'll work for me. I can make it work if I can lock into that.
Yeah. Like you might have a value around, like maybe there's someone in that 50 group where you're like, I really know it's important to them to like see me at this event and have that experience. And I value that for them. And so I will go for an hour and I will take sensory breaks, and so there's also the like navigating of, we're relational creatures. So there's the values of other people that we're also considering. Well, and I think, thinking through, I love the language of access needs. That becomes part of the conversation too, which of course that taps into like, is somebody openly autistic or not? And that gets into self-advocacy and like whether we're saying like, hey, I'll come for an hour, or I might take breaks, or like I'll take breaks outside, come back. So there's also the navigating our access needs when we are doing things that are value consistent but hard. Another way that this conversation's been really helpful for me and for my family is there's just so many cultural expectations that we can absorb around what the holidays are supposed to look like, or anything, even birthdays. And so once I was able to anchor into the value is connection with my family, then we were able to think through, what does an ideal Christmas day look like for us? What does a holiday season look like for us? What does an ideal birthday experience look like? And if the value is connection, that's not going to look like how culture perhaps says those events should go or those days should go. And so getting really comfortable with how we have really quiet holiday seasons. We have really cozy holiday seasons. And like we really lean into hygge this time of year, and it's about connection. It's about cozy. And that's so value aligned for us. And once we release the pressure to like go to all of these things or have loud holidays or loud birthdays,
Yeah.
we actually were able to both become more value consistent, because that's what connection actually looks like for us. And it was much more sensory accommodated. We don't do vacations really. And I've noticed that's common for neurodivergent families.
Yeah.
And it's because it's absolutely not a connecting experience for us to go on vacation together. It is a disconnecting, fragmenting experience. And once we figured out, like, this isn't a connecting experience, we don't need to keep doing this. That was also really a helpful way of kind of taking this idea.
I want to call out one section in your essay that you wrote about where it was taking the family. This was so deeply relatable. I could feel it as you were writing it. Taking the family to some sort of location or big thing, something for the holidays. There's sensory overwhelm. There's burnout. There's a lot of things that you then had to manage both in the family event and then on the other end of the family event. And then for like a couple of days afterwards, there was just this rawness that everyone had to recover from. And I just thought, yes, that's it. That was such a, because there is that, like a vacation, you're out of your element. And so there's more tension and there's overwhelm, and families might be sniping at one another, because they just don't know how to like get to that comfort zone when they're out of their norm. So
there's one thing I wish neurodivergent humans and families felt invited into this season, is like anchoring into your why and your values, and that's not going to look like a lot of the cultural expectations we have, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And to make whatever you need in the season to help make you happy.
Yeah.
That often looks different for us.
If you'd like to discover what values come up for you, you can use the same tool that Dr. Neff and I talked about in the conversation just now. There's a free link to it in the description below. Be sure to check that out, and we'd be curious what your values are. Let us know in the comments. You can also read the article that we referenced throughout the conversation in this week's Neurodivergent Insights newsletter, or by going to neurodivergentinsights.com and checking out the blog. And be sure to sign up for our free Neurodivergent Insights weekly newsletter while you're there. If you found this conversation helpful, we would love for you to like and subscribe to this video. It really does help our channel grow, and it helps us get more of our educational work out to more people. All this month, we're going to be talking about holidays and being neurodivergent, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss one. Thanks for watching.